What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is the Fourth and Fantasy Podcast, episode 12. I count one, I count two, and then there's a third at the table. Mr. Ty Stromley, welcome to the table. You are here on the Fourth and Fantasy Podcast. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell the people your background in fantasy football and what brought you here to the table.
I started playing fantasy in the Neanderthal age.
The olden days?
And now playing in a very different type of fantasy football.
Did you ever think you'd be sitting at a table talking about fantasy football?
No, but this is nice. This is nice.
Yeah, this is. I'm always with my main man Wu across the table. Wu, what's grinding your gears today, buddy?
Oh man, Mel Kiper, I hope you're sitting down for this one because as of 5 days ago, he came out with his latest mock draft, and he doesn't even have Luther Burden in the first round. Mel Kiper,
Criminal.
Have you ever held a football in your entire life? How are you allowed to be on TV every single day and you can't watch Luther Burden and say he belongs in the first round? I'm so sick of him. I'm over it. I'm over it.
Yeah,
I agree.
We talked to wide receivers last episode, right? So if you listen to that episode, you know that Wu and I we're in on Luther Burden.
He's my one.
Right?
He's my one.
Out of most people.
Agree on that.
Ty, you got any thoughts on Luther Burden?
I fully agree. Last year he was rivaling Malik Neighbors for best receiver, and all of a sudden he's not good enough to be in the first round. It's crazy to me.
Yep, so we'll see. Just a quick housekeeping stuff. Top of the show, we've 650 plus plays. Woo, wow. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wow. YouTube. We're cranking, man. It's crazy. Make sure you're following us on all our socials: Twitter at Fourth and Fantasy Pod, Instagram and TikTok at Fourth and Fantasy. Quick aside to that, I just want to let everyone know that our recent TikTok, we got a shout out. Maybe not
bad
a good
look
one
for me.
Yeah, bad look for me. Matthew Golden, if you're listening out there, listen, no hard feelings, buddy. You want to come on the podcast? You want to talk about some stuff? Listen, I'm holding out hope for you, but
Matthew Golden, just remember who has you ranked higher. Me.
And then YouTube, we're at Fourth and Fantasy as well. Please give us a like, follow on all of our socials. If you're listening to this podcast, make sure you're giving us 5 stars. Leave a comment because you never know, you might see yourself on the show. All right. So a little bit different. Obviously we go in normally quick question, but we have a special guest. So we're going to quickly go through. I think there's only been one big free agency move. We have some things that we want to talk about dynasty related, and then episode 12 today, baby, is rookie tight ends. Right. The last rookie profile, and and the draft is what 3 weeks away.
Yeah, sometime in April
coming up. So, just really quick free agency update. The New York Giants, they have a quarterback
QB1
by the name of Jameis Winston.
Famous
Jameis, right? I believe it was a 2-year deal, $16 million, right? So, Jameis is in the town. I think if anyone is a Malik Neighbors manager,
2,500 yards.
You are like over the moon right now, right?
Who could that be?
Yeah. Hold on. We'll get there in a second. But, listen, it could have been way worse, right? You could have had
Russell Wilson.
You could have had Russell Wilson, right? You could have, had possibly Sam Darnold, but we'll take Jameis. You know what I mean?
It'll be a fun losing season.
Yeah. So what do we think though, fellas? Do we think that does this mean that Jameis is the one for the entire year? Do we think New York's going to go a quarterback in the draft? What are our thoughts? I'll kick it to you, Ty. Go ahead.
I think they're just buying time. He'll be the quarterback this year for who knows.
Yeah.
But I think they're just buying time. Dable's trying to save his life. I don't know if he can. I don't know how he's still around. Mm-hmm. But
I don't think he's a bad coach.
No, I don't think so either. But it's just NFL. You got to produce. Yeah. If you don't produce, you got to go get something else.
That's a fact.
It is.
I agree. I think they're also buying time. I'd be shocked if they go quarterback in this draft, especially with how weak it is. Maybe they take a shot on somebody late, but to me, I don't see what the reason for that is.
Question mark?
Like a Milroe or like a McCord name, something I think about. But yeah, I think Jameis is the guy for the season. If that wasn't the plan, they wouldn't have signed him in the first place. I think.
I would agree.
They're also holding out.
Yes.
They're trying to do the whole Manning again.
Absolutely
trying to do the Manning thing again.
I just I don't know. I don't know if Dable survives the year though. You know what I mean? Like they have to produce something in order for him to still keep his job. Whether it's winning like 6 to 7 games or something like that. And who know? I don't know if you can do that.
Well,
with
he
that
needs
roster.
some help with that roster. Like
Right.
the general manager, like what are we talking about here? I mean, Dable can only do so much with the pieces he's
Whoa,
got.
hold on, Darius Slayton.
God, yeah. Yeah, jeez.
Not Saquon
How could I
Barkley,
forget?
Darius Slayton.
Yeah.
Right. So, that was just a quick free agency update. That's all that all we had as of February or March 23rd. I don't know why I said February. But we're gonna roll into some Dynasty League updates. So the three of the men you see here at the table, we are in the Dynasty Fight Club. Been doing that now. I think we're in year 3. No, we're going in year 4.
Yeah.
We're going to year 4 of this league. But part of the reason why we have Ty here on the set today is we have 3, I would say, major trades that just kind of changed the way our Dynasty League looked.
Absolutely.
Right. So I'm just gonna go in order. So the first one is yours truly. I made a trade, started it off. So I traded away Jackson Smith and Jigba, Ricky Pearsall, and the 111 in this year's draft for Puka Nacua and a 2026 second.
I think it's crazy you got to pick with that too.
Right?
I fully agree with that.
So I will sit back. I'll let you guys. What do you guys think of my work?
So first off, I missed this trade completely. I don't know how. I was alive the day it happened, so I don't know how I missed it. But we've had the conversation with about JSN for the last couple episodes. With the Geno Smith trade, and they bring in Darnold, and they blow up the rest of their roster with getting rid of DK Metcalf. So we haven't seen him as the only guy on his team yet. So that's something we have to take into account. But when you can turn JSN and Ricky Pearsall, who there's still question marks about him too, into a bona fide guy like Nacua, you do that 11 times out of 10.
Yeah.
So I love the trade, especially since you have other first round picks. That 111, who cares?
Right.
In my opinion.
Yeah, so my thought process behind it was just like Wu said. We were talking about JSN. I don't see the vision in Seattle. That's my problem. I don't know what.
I was gonna say.
I think there is. I think there is, but the problem with the vision is I don't see JSN stepping into like a marquee role in this vision. You know what I mean? What I think the vision is it's going to be Darnold's going to game manage, and they're going to run the ball with Charbonnet and Walker. They're just going to run the ball down your throat, and then they're going to hook it up with play action, and then either throw to JSN or Cooper Kupp. You know what I mean? So like, it's not like the Ryan Grubb system where you knew where he was at Washington, it was 3 wide, and they're going to throw the ball over the yard, which means multiple opportunities. That's the thing when you play fantasy football, right? You want something that's going to give you the most opportunity, right?
It's not even necessarily about the quality.
And you take someone who has the limited opportunity in JSN, and then you have Puka Nacua, who they just got rid of Cooper Kupp, and he's got all of it in the world.
But they did get Devontae.
They did. But
I don't think that's going to.
I think that helps Puka more than hurts him though, because again, the Sean McVay offense, they run 3 wide all the time. Yeah. So you just give yourself more opportunity.
And he's a vocal point of
correct
the way their offense
and,
runs.
and listen, Devontae Adams is no scrub whatsoever. No. You know what I mean? So, like, he's going to demand targets, but I think he understands that he is the 1B in this situation, and that Puka is the focal point that they're going to look for in this offense.
And Stafford can easily, make both those guys very relevant.
Right. And the other thing too is like it's the same kind of QB situation. Stafford's 37 years old. He's got 1 or 2 years. Darnold, you look at the contract, it was a 3-year deal, but when you look into it,
they can opt out
after the first year. So if he plays terrible, then you're back to square one with JSN, just like Puka if, Stafford retires. So that's kind of how I saw it. But then we had a second trade. This one, I still shake my head at after seeing it. So I'm gonna give you. This is a long one, so I'm gonna give you the pick side first. So the pick side, this person received a 2026 first, a 2027 first, a 2027 second round, and the 102 in this year's draft. And you're thinking, there's got to be major value coming on the other side. Well, let me tell you, Malik Neighbors, Jordan Love. There's not much more value than you can get from that. And the man that sits to the left of me made that trade. First thoughts on that. So obviously, for those of you who don't know, Ty had made a trade earlier during our season where he acquired Jamar Chase and Jahmyr Gibbs. So it's like, and now you look at this and you're like, this guy got Malik Neighbors. Like, are you serious right now? And to top it off, like, no disrespect to your team, but like, you were kind of spinning the wheels at quarterback, and now you kind of get you get more of a solidified piece, like here, which is like, I think that's kind of the underrated thing. Like, yeah, Malik Neighbors is amazing, but you just got like a solidified franchise quarterback.
I would have done all those picks just for Neighbors.
Yeah, right. Like it's insane. So talk to us about like how did this trade even come to fruition?
So he's been hounding me for. I also have pick 3.
Yes, that's right.
I had 2 and 3. He's been hounding me for one of these picks, and the other day, I was just sitting there, and he was like, "What would make you give it up?" I was like, "Give me Malik Neighbors and Jordan Love," just saying it as a joke. And he was like, "All right, we can work something." And I'm like, "Wait a second.
All right, I'll just give you Love and Neighbors.
This could happen. Yeah. What's going on here? This could actually happen." Mind you, it sounds like I gave up a lot, especially first round picks. Right. But I still have the 3rd pick in this year's draft.
Yep.
And 2 first next year.
Right. You just been collecting picks. Yeah.
Mind you, one of those first round picks next year is the worst team in our leagues.
Yep.
First round pick.
Shout out Joe Wilcox.
So I got away with even having to give up that pick.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I'm setting myself up to be good for some time.
Yeah, you do.
Mind you, I have last year's number 1 running back in fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Last year's number 1 wide receiver in fantasy.
Yep.
Last year's number 1 tight end in fantasy.
Yep.
And then I add Neighbors and Love, which, like you said, I've been running with Derek Carr and Russell Wilson at quarterback.
Nobody wants to be in that situation.
I needed something. I've been trying to get something at quarterback, and this just, I think, hopefully, put me in a good place.
You got a useful team too.
I was gonna say, like, you have the studs and the horses, and they're all under the age of like 26. You know what I mean? So it's like, my God, we'll see.
Yeah.
But no, kudos to you. That trade was amazing.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna round it out with our 3-headed dragon of trades. Mr. Brian Wojtino over here decided, I'm done with Josh Allen. I want to give him up, but in return, so I'll give you so Wu gave up Josh Allen and Khalil Shakir. So gave away a stack for Bo Nix, Rome Odunze, and the 2026 first round pick. Wu, Josh Allen, you gave him away.
Yeah. So to be honest, when I first sent out this trade, I was kind of just I've said it on the show before. I'm in on Bo Nix. I like what he has. I'm unaware that he was able to run the ball as well as he is, so I think he's a dual threat guy.
Yep.
So I sent out the trade. It didn't look really anything like this, but I kind of wanted to just see if this guy was, willing to, to bite at this. And all of a sudden he was. He sends me a counteroffer. I was like, all right, well, maybe we have something here. Let me put it this way. After the deal's done, would I have liked more picks? Yes. But my problem with my roster is over the last 2 years, I've been very top heavy. Josh Allen was really the only quarterback I've had. Like, I've had the bones of Geno Smith, where I kind of got a solid year out of it, out of him. So and my roster was getting a little older, so I wanted to bring some youth to the squad. Sure, Josh Allen and Shakir, it's a stack that I'm giving up. I'm buying the hype around the Bears and Rome Odunze. We see second-year breakouts all the time.
Absolutely.
With receivers. Debo Samuel's an example of this. When he was in San Francisco. So for me, the age difference between Nix and Allen isn't that large. But listen, Josh Allen's a beast. He's not going to have 12 rushing touchdowns for the rest of his career. That's going to stop at some point.
Absolutely.
Sure, is it maybe going a little too soon on it? Yes. But then the other piece is I get a first-round pick. The roster that I'm getting the first-round pick from isn't the greatest team, so I'm predicting it to be in the top 5-7 range, which I can work with. And I've said on the show before, my strategy in Dynasty is I have no problem giving up draft assets for players in the season if I'm in a spot to compete for a championship. Mm-hmm. So to me, that first-round pick, sure, can be a nice pick next year. But I also am going to the season with another pick that I can use to get another player.
Yeah, I was also going to say, like, I think the key in your trade is that you got a first round pick for next year. We've been on the show and we've gone through the rookie class, and we've sat here and said, if you have an opportunity to get a 2025 first, you do it, because this is a running back class. Next year is a quarterback class.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And that's where I'm weak.
And if that's where you're weak and you want to build up, trade now for a 26 first when nobody knows what it's going to be, who it's going to be, and then next thing you know, you have 3 of them, and then you can make moves and do whatever you want with them.
Exactly.
So
in a perfect world, I get more firsts, but I'm high on Odunze going into this year. I love what Ben Johnson can do with that offense. I'm still in on Caleb Williams, so that plays into it as well.
Yeah.
And I really liked what I saw at the Knicks.
I was gonna say, at the end of the day, when playing thing I've learned now, we've done it for 4 years. Like, if you have a conviction on a player and you see the path, like, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks about what trade
Scared
you
money
have.
don't make
You know what I mean? Like, you call your shot and you see what happens. You know what I mean? So, but that's awesome. So yeah, that's the roundup of the Dynasty Fight Club. All of the other trade partners. If you guys ever want to come on and explain yourself on the other side, you're more than welcome to do so. But now we're going to get into the main reason why we're here, right? So this is, again, episode 12. We are rounding out our rookie previews. We've given you the quarterbacks. We've given you the running backs. We've given you the wide receivers. Now we got the tight ends for you. So just a quick overview of the tight end class. And, these are just my thoughts. And I know some people have different opinions, but, I feel like this is the second best position class in this draft. Running backs are probably the best position class, and then tight ends. There's 2 I see potential studs that are probably going to go in the first round, and then there are some interesting options though that are leading off these top 2 prospects. I think all other options are probably going to be round 3 or later. And I think the way I see it is there's these 2, and then we have a little gap, and then we have the rest of the people.
I agree.
So when we talk about each tight end, we're going to do the same format that we've given you in all of our other ones. We're going to talk about our process. So that's our pre-film. So we give you the stats and accolades. We'll get into post-film. Those are impressions and thoughts that we had about that player. Some comps, maybe who this player reminds us of. Best fits. Where do we see this player finding the most success? And again, I will say again when we talk about best fits, sometimes not all fits are plausible, right? But this is kind of what we think where this player is going to find the most success if they were able to land with this team. And then we're going to round it out with our just overall thoughts and impressions of the player. What do we think they can do? And then maybe kind of share our rookie rankings, where we rank them, and where we feel comfortable drafting them in our rookie drafts, because listen, they're coming. So
real soon.
You got to do your homework.
Mock on the way.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we're going to kick it off with, a man that people are saying is potentially generational, just like Brock Bowers. That's Mr. Tyler Warren. Did you guys know Tyler Warren was a former basketball player?
No, but it makes sense.
It does, doesn't it?
You can see it.
6'6", 257 is, and I put here in my notes, 6'6", 257. It's almost perfect. Like that's exactly what you want to see in a tight end. And a tight end in college with 104 receptions is insane. To couple that with 1,233 yards, 8 touchdowns as a tight end was nuts. Like I don't know. Like obviously, we're full stop. Brock Bowers is the generational guy,
yes.
right? But you see Warren putting out stats like this, and I knew he was like the top guy everyone was talking about. I didn't realize the stats were like this.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Same for me.
And then the other thing I put here in my pre-film was I put Wildcat ? Like he had 26 rushes for 218 yards.
The
like
running back, quarterback.
Yes,
A lot.
right.
A lot.
I did see a couple passes.
I was going to say, and I think what I saw when I was researching before was he was a high school quarterback first.
I think I did hear
and
that.
then he went to college to play basketball. Then he transferred to Penn State and then played tight end. So, does anyone got any pre-film impressions about Tyler Warren?
I mean, for me, all I've been hearing was tight end 1 in this draft. Teams are absolutely willing to use high draft capital on this guy. So that that pretty much tells you all you need to know. I didn't watch a ton of Penn State, and if I was watching Penn State, I wasn't paying attention to the tight end position. I'll be straight up so honest about that. But from what I had seen, looked like an all around dog. And again, I talk about this with every player and what conference they play. He played in the Big Ten. That's some damn good football teams.
Yeah. Ty, any pre-film impressions?
He's a guy you can't miss. When you see Penn State's offense walk out on the field, it's just someone passes the eye test. It's like,
yes,
who is that?
Yep.
You can't.
He's a football player.
You look at him and you're like, wow,
player.
Who is that guy?
Yep.
You can't miss him. You can't miss him. It's just he stands out.
Yeah.
He looks like a man among boys. It's crazy.
And that what you just said right there is like he passes the eye test and you can't miss him. Like you knew, like when I was watching the film, you knew where Tyler Warren was on the field. You know what I mean? So
you just better know,
right? Exactly. So just some quick thoughts that I had when I was watching this film. I thought he had excellent spatial awareness. He sat in the soft spot of the zone. Was a nice easy target for his quarterback Drew Aller. And it makes sense. He had 104 receptions, right? So I also put he was sneaky fast. It didn't look like it, but he was moving down the field. Like there were times,
speed is there.
Yeah, the game speed is there where like he doesn't look fast, but as you're watching him, he's starting to pull away from people, as he goes down the sideline. I put, his favorite route was the seam route. That's where he made the most of his money, and he's got reliable hands. I put here is, he's an athlete, just like Ty was saying, lined up as quarterback. Like who do you know as your tight end is lining up playing quarterback, throwing passes, taking dives, taking QB powers, like it was insane.
Especially
watching
on
it.
a team that had won a couple games into the college football playoff. Wasn't that like some slouch team playing in, I don't know, the ACC or whatever?
Right,
and
right.
have good running backs.
Yes,
think about that.
Nick Singleton.
Take them out to put him in and give him the ball.
Yeah, you could tell he was the focal point of that offense. Like everything was run through Tyler Warren. I put here that he was physical. A couple plays in the USC game where he wanted the contact. He was running people over. And like we said, he's 6'6", 257. Like he's going to use all of that to run you over.
He goes and gets the ball too.
Right.
He's
does.
not waiting. He's going to go get the ball, and you love to see that from someone who catches passes.
Absolutely.
Go get the ball.
Wu, what did you see? Anything else that I'm missing on the film?
I mean, he's a sicko when it comes to blocking. Like, just blocks well beyond the play. Like there was multiple times where he's blocking dudes into the sideline. The play's 20 yards upfield.
Yep.
So I mean, he's insane with that. Again, super physical. The catch and traffic ability is absolutely there. The great hands, the body control, the focus, he's checking all the boxes for that. Solid and as a separation creator. Like you touched on. He doesn't look super fast, but he gradually will create that separation as the route's going on. And I also think he has the yards after catch ability. He can shake off defenders, and he's good with the contact after the play. And I also have, he can even outrun them sometimes. Depending on who it is.
Yeah.
I saw read option on the goal line. We've touched on that. Like, what are we talking about? It's a tight end. Played Wildcat. He did that in the Orange Bowl against Notre Dame. They got him playing Wildcat. I think he's super versatile. He can line up in multiple spots, and they were super creative with him.
Yeah. Any additional stuff that you saw that you wanted to highlight for the people at home?
He's just good. He's just good.
Well put.
He's just good. He finds a soft spot in zones. He's always open for his quarterback. When the quarterback needs him to be open and needs a play, Allen knew where he was going.
And that's what you need in a tight end.
Yeah.
You need a reliable person who's going to, who's an intelligent person that can read a defense and know that that's the spot where I need to be in order to be available for my quarterback. Anyone got a comp for Tyler Warren?
Screams George Kittle.
Whoa.
George Kittle.
I like that.
Day,
I like that.
All day.
A lot of people are saying Gronk, but there's no Gronk.
No.
There's only one Gronk.
He's one of one.
There's only one.
I have what I put it was Greg Olson with a mean streak.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Minus the rapping.
Huh?
Minus the rapping.
Minus the rapping, right?
Hey,
yeah.
that we know about.
And listen, I think the thing here is like he's probably more athletic and versatile than what Greg Olson was, because I'm curious to see if a team is going to see the film of Tyler Warren and try to put in packages where they have him playing quarterback or have him at running back and just put the ball in his hands and see what happens.
Yeah.
You know. But I'm gonna kick it to you, Ty. Best fits. What do you got for a best fit for him?
Tight end's a hard place to say best fit because it all matters on like the way you run your offense.
Yes.
If you're running the ball well, tight end can be amazing for you, especially one that can block like him.
Yep.
Because the play action to a tight end is deadly in the NFL if you have a good running game.
Mm-hmm.
Do teams reach on him early?
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
That's
There's a certain team.
There it is. There it is.
What team is that?
So yeah, I'll just go right into it. The New York Jets, go get this guy, please. He would be the second best pass catcher on this team.
Yeah,
they need another weapon like him. You can be so creative with him. You can line him up in multiple spots. And most importantly, especially for them, he serves as a great blocker, and they've struggled with the run game. So he would just be a piece that they desperately need, and they're in a realistic spot to take.
I was gonna say, I think that would make the New York Jets a sneaky, dynamic team because, listen, we all know that they're not going to allow Justin Fields to just throw the ball 30, 40 times a game. You know what I mean?
That's not his game.
He's gonna manage the game. He's gonna run with his legs. But if he has a reliable person like Warren, up the seam where it's just a quick, easy either out or a seam route, like that's all Justin Fields needs. And then if he's hitting with him, then you have to respect, Garrett Wilson. It leaves him wide open. Like that could be very interesting, and I would enjoy watching that.
Yeah.
So I had three. Obviously, the most obvious one that people have him mocked to is Indianapolis. Yeah. I think that would work.
Yeah.
Just the same way it would help Fields. I think it would help Anthony Richardson.
Sure.
And then eventually Daniel Jones because we know he's going to get benched. The other one I had was Denver. I would hate it, but I also think that it would fit perfectly. But I think when I was doing this was before when they signed Evan Ingram. So I think maybe now this one is a little bit unrealistic. Yeah. But the third one that I have, and we were talking about this pre-show, is Seattle. I think Seattle giving Darnold a reliable asset, and now you have JSN, you have Kupp, you have Warren, and then you have Walker and Charbonnet out of the backfield. Like that's a good core for Darnold to work through. Assuming the offensive line is good and they can run the ball effectively, that's another story. You know what I mean?
I got one more. It's Tampa Bay. I just think he would be such a fun piece with Baker. Like both absolute psychos.
Where's Tampa picking?
I want to say they're like 18 or 19.
I want to say it's
in that range.
I want to say it was around Denver because I know Denver's 21. I want to say they were like 19 or 20.
Yeah, but he would be surrounded by playmakers with Evans and Godwin, and with those guys getting a year older, I think there should be a really good spot for him to slot in. You learn from some great NFL vets that would make your transition a lot easier. And then he also fits into the run scheme really well. We know Tampa Bay likes to run the ball, so it's just more ways to get him onto the field. And if K. Dotton can be relevant in this offense, then Tyler Warren would be a smash play.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna throw it to anyone who wants to take it at the table. Where do you feel comfortable taking Tyler Warren in rookie drafts?
Definitely in the first round.
Yes.
Coming from a guy who drafted Brock Bowers in the first round, so
that's the thing. Like this is 2 years in a row now where we've had a rookie tight end be the number one overall tight end in fantasy that that season.
Do you think that inflates the value though? Where like we see some people who are like, I saw Laporta become was the number one tight end. I saw Bowers was the number one. Like I'm gonna get out in front of it and take my chance on Warren. Like, do you see him going at the 104, 105?
To me, I wouldn't do that unless you're in a tight end premium league.
Okay.
I think that's our league is turning into one in a couple of years, so maybe that's something that people are going to start thinking about, and this would be a great spot to do it. But again, you're gonna have to wait. What is it, like 2 more years until we switch to that?
Yeah.
Since we have that little grace period. But in a tight end premium league, if you want to take him at 5, in that, I would say anywhere from like 4. No, I'd say 5 to 7. I would be comfortable with that.
I was gonna say, and I think that's where he's marked right now is like that 106, 107, like area.
But if you're like super set on a situation to if a running back goes to a really good spot or a wide receiver, I'm not mad at all if you take them above Tyler Warren.
Yeah. So just some overall thoughts that I had. I put here, he's definitely the number one tight end in this class. There's no question about it. I can see him being the focal point of an offense. Where it doesn't matter who's playing, wide receiver, who's a running back, like almost like a Mark Andrews, like when he first came onto the scene, like everything runs through him and then everyone else is secondary and they'll get their work. He's way more versatile than I expected. Just you totally see the former quarterback in him come through. You know, the basketball athleticism, you know, as he's running around the field. But you know, is anyone got any final thoughts on Tyler Warren before we move on?
I echo all of that.
Yeah,
all of that. He's a dog.
Yeah.
He's a dog.
So he's the number one tight end for everyone here
100%.
at the table.
Not me.
No, he's not your number one.
No.
All
we will
right.
get to the number one.
All right. Moving on. Next person we're going to talk about is Colston Loveland out of University of Michigan. Colston Loveland, 6'5", 248 pounds. He was a two-time all Big Ten in 2023 and 2024. Was a Mackey Award finalist, second team All-American. I put here for my pre-draft notes he's definitely a smaller prospect than Warren, but he's young. He just turned 21. So and
I hate that I'm older than professional athletes now. I've gotten to that age now. I'm
me.
like, what the hell?
You're telling me.
Like where did I go wrong in life?
When I say kid, it's like, oh, they actually are a kid.
Yeah, right? Comparative. But so tight ends as a whole, right? They really don't start coming into their prime until they're in like their mid to late 20s, and they're even viable through like early 30s, mid 30s. So it's he's just scratching the surface, being 21 years old. Only played 10 games though, I will say. Did have a major shoulder injury. I believe he had surgery over the offseason, but I think he's going to be ready for training camp. You noticed in this, Michigan offense, it was not the same as it was 2 years ago when they won the national championship, right?
That played a part.
Absolutely, it did, and he struggled. And I put here, right, the stats don't tell us all, but he did have 11 total touchdowns in college. But anyone want to take the floor on Colston Loveland? Anything thoughts?
Before I got into the film, you talk about he's a smaller guy. You wonder if the more physical NFL and these bigger defensive players, like how much that's going to play into his performance. But when I got into the actual film of him at Michigan, I thought he actually dealt with contact pretty well. Honestly, he has like pretty solid acceleration for a tight end. Especially he's not small, but he's still a big player. He's just smaller for the position.
Yep.
But I was still impressed with his movement. I thought he was really a smooth mover as well. When you don't have that top end speed, you need to be very intentional with how you're running these routes and any kind of movement that you're making trying to get open. So I thought that looked really good. I thought his route running was honestly pretty good too. He confused a lot of defensive backs, not even just linebackers. Like he was making defensive backs miss, which is really good for a tight end. It becomes a positional advantage because some linebackers can't keep up with tight ends. So that's when they have to put a DB on them. Yeah. And if you can create separation against a DB, then that's a huge weapon for your offense. I think he has like top tier hands, especially in traffic. I think that guy has magnets on his hands for sure. I think he also has yak ability, not to the level of Tyler Warren, but I think it's still something worth noting. And also talking about Warren, he's not as big as a tackle breaker as Warren, but he can deal with contact and use those smooth movements to pick up an extra couple yards that he wasn't really supposed to get to in the first place. He's really good at finding soft spots in the defense, especially when a play breaks down. He's very helpful to his quarterback. He sits down, to be that safety net. He's not the greatest blocker. I think that can be coachable. I don't know if that has to play with his size, but I wasn't very impressed with
I think,
what I saw.
and I think that is going to be the big thing. I think obviously we know Warren is that dude and he can do it all, but there are a lot of tight ends in this draft class that I think struggle with that, and I think that's going to be the difference for you getting on the field and getting those touches than not. So a lot of these tight ends in this class, Loveland included, either have to put on like 10 15 pounds and show that you can be a reliable blocker before we start giving you the targets and the receptions and 100%. Things like that.
Honestly, as a summary, I was really impressed with how smooth he was out there.
Yeah.
Like everything just looked so crisp.
Yeah. Ty, you get anything for Colston Loveland that you noticed?
I mean, if you watch the national championship year, he played in Jim Harbaugh's offense.
Yes.
As a tight end, if that gives you what you need to know about him playing tight end in the NFL. He played in that year. He was the focal point of their passing game.
Mm-hmm.
Good quarterback, good coaching. He had a great year. The next year, God knows who was playing quarterback for Michigan. That was Alex Orgy couldn't even throw the
No.
ball 5 yards.
No,
So
he
what-
That's pretty bad.
I was gonna say I watched a couple of those games and it was rough. It was rough.
I think he's a very good tight end. Do I think he's a premier tight end? Not at all. I could bite myself on that, but I think he's a serviceable tight end. When we get into comps, to me, I think he's like what's his name in Dallas? Ferguson or
Jake Ferguson.
same type of tight end. Type of tight end.
Yeah. When I watched it a lot, I noticed that he was set out wide a lot. And, we talked about the injury, and I don't know if they were doing it to protect him. You know what I mean? Just because, just like you said, 2 years ago, he was, in a Jim Harbaugh offense, hand in the dirt. But when you watch him, this past year, he hardly ever had his hand in there. And I wonder if the shoulder injury came into play and they were trying to protect him, because there were a lot of plays that, when I was watching, he'd land on the shoulder and grimace, hold it, or come out. And I think he was like really trying to play through, which, that's a check for him and his grittiness, you know what I mean? And he's a football guy, and comes onto the field. I put here he was twitchy, and made great cuts, when he was on the field. So, who knows? But comp for him that I had was I had Evan Ingram light and Kyle Pitts light, just because they always had him, not on the line. It was always, in the slot, and, they were getting him the ball there. So, that's what I noticed. But I know you had said Ferguson. What do you have for a comp for Loveland?
Yeah, so I definitely saw some Evan Ingram. I have him noted as well. And then, also don't freak out when I say this, but he's got the smoothness of Travis Kelce.
Okay. Like I see that. I get what you're saying.
Like, I'm not saying he's Travis Kelce.
Nobody's Travis Kelce.
Exactly. But like just the way he was, moving about on the field in his routes or coming out of a break, like it just looked just like everything was so intentional. There was no wasted movement. And especially when you're a smaller guy like that, you have to be very intentional with how you're moving around. And it just looked like, Travis Kelce.
Yeah. So some fits that I had here for Loveland, Seattle again. I think they're going to make a move unless they're in love with what's his name, AJ Barner. There's just listen. Don't be surprised if you see him come onto the scene. I've heard some whisper in the bushes about him, but who knows? They might want to get a more premier guy. I put here the Chargers, of course. There's that connection with Harbaugh.
That's the biggest one.
And but the question is he going to be there by then? Because the Jets take Warren at 7. Indy still needs a tight end. They take Loveland. I could see a world where he's not there at 22.
Yeah.
And then the last one I had, and this one would be sick, is Washington. Yeah. If he could go to Washington, he probably has to sit for half a year or a year behind Ertz because they signed him to a 1-year deal. But after that, I think you have Loveland with Debo and McLaurin for Daniels. Like that's awesome.
Yeah. I also have Seattle, so I won't even talk about that. But my other one is Jacksonville. He would be a great safety net for Lawrence. They lose Evan Ingram, who in 2022 was the tight end 2, and in 2023 was the tight end 5. So you've seen successful tight ends in Jacksonville,
and they use it
exactly. They got a new offensive-minded coach with Cohen. The team needs another pass catcher. Brian Thomas Jr. is going to get all the eyes, so I think it would just be super easy for Loveland to slot in there.
Did you have any other ones, Ty?
No, I fully agree with you guys' teams.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To me, the Chargers, it just makes too much sense.
I didn't even put two together with the Harbaugh connection.
It makes too much sense. It makes too much
sense. The only thing with that one is I just hope, I'll go right into my overall thoughts, right? So overall, what I had said here, I think Loveland is closer to the tight end 3 than he is the tight end 1, in my opinion. He's definitely a good athlete. I feel like he didn't show much in terms of route diversity, but I think that's also due to his injury that, when you're watching, his film, and I put here, as I watched, he looked like the focal point of the Michigan offense, but can he be the number 1 option for an NFL team? I don't know, but he's definitely a great complementary piece. I think if he were someone who puts on, 10 pounds, where do we have him in? 248?
Like
yeah, so if he puts on, even like 8 pounds, you know what I mean? He's at 256, 257.
Big difference.
That's a good playing weight than playing at 248. But anyone had any overall thoughts for Loveland.
I like your point when you say he's definitely closer to the tight end 3 than he is to the tight end 1. I think that's well said. We talked about it earlier where there's Warren, and then there's kind of that gap with the rest of the guys, and he definitely falls into that category.
Yeah. Anything else, Ty?
I agree with that.
Yeah. So where'd you have him?
2.
2. Yeah, I have him 2. Ty.
3.
All right.
Okay.
All right. We're gonna move into our third one. Yeah.
Here
Listen,
he is. Tight end 1.
I'm gonna set the scene.
Tight end 1.
I'll set the scene, and then I'm just gonna kick it to you, and I'm gonna let you go. The person we're talking about is Harold Fanning Jr. out of Bowling Green. Harold Fanning Jr. was unfamiliar with his game.
Oh, so unfamiliar.
So unfamiliar with his game, but
Who he play for?
played for Bowling Green, consensus All-American. He was the MAC Offensive Player of the Year, along with the Vern Smith Leadership Award winner. So a lot of good things. That the awards were there. 6'4", 241, smaller than Loveland. I will point out, but 117 catches at tight end, like that
Produces.
Right, we just said we were just talking about how Warren had 104. This guy has 117. You know what I mean?
And 300 more yards.
Yeah, and I put here like I'm confused. Like 1,555 yards and 10 touchdowns is nuts. And then his yards per catch were I think was the second best in the class at 13.3 yards per catch. Like that's awesome. But so I'll set the scene. But I'm gonna kick it to you, Ty. You tell us about Harold Fanning Jr., please.
He can play everywhere on the field. Bowling Green set him up at wide out, in the slot, tight end. They put him everywhere. Perfect example you want. Tyler Warren, everybody's tight end 1. They played against each other this year.
Yep. Tell him.
Go check out his stats in that game. We're talking about Bowling Green. Go check out his numbers in that game.
I'll tell you, he had 11 for 137 and a touchdown against Penn State. Like, that's insane.
The guy is just, he's athletic. He can do everything. Want to talk about do everything an athlete? He's just, to me, he is the biggest what could be in this NFL draft.
Yes.
That possible ceiling.
What could be in this draft? He just has so much talent. Great route runner. Speed, athleticism. He has everything. And he played at Bowling Green.
Mm-hmm. It'd be one thing to play at Bowling Green and put up all these stats and we're like just like Genti, you know what I mean? It's like, listen, you played in a high school offense, but when it came down to playing against elite competition, so I already told you about the stat line against Penn State. Played A&M, and it was better. 8 for 145 and a touchdown. Like, so when the lights were on, Harold Fanning showed up.
There.
You know what I mean? I guess my thing with Harold Fanning is I'm a little conflicted. Right? The stats are there, you know what I mean. The awards are there, but then when you start watching the film, obviously yes, he got all the work at Bowling Green. There was nobody else who got the work. Yeah. But when I was watching him, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't know. There were some times where I'm watching him. It looks like he's like running in mud. Like he was.
I think he ran a 4.81.
I don't know. Like that was what was conflicting about it. But then again, then he's shifty. You know what I mean? And like
game speed
it looks like he doesn't belong. Like he's out there. But then once you start, like he starts making plays, and then he's making people miss, and then he's starting to pull away from people. Like I'm very conflicted on Harold Fanning. I understand it all, but is somebody going to tell me that we value Harold Fanning and we're going to put the draft capital in to take him?
Yeah.
I don't think a team does. In the right situation, though,
right.
He is. I
think that's the problem.
So
I think with the media talking about this tight end draft class, I think they have established that it's Warren and it's Loveland, and then it's everyone else who kind of falls in between. So does somebody has that system that works for Fanning, are they going to take him, or is someone just going to say, well, he's the best value on the draft board, like let's just take him, and he doesn't fit that system, and then we're talking about what was of Harold Fanning.
But I also think the problem with him is also he went to Bowling Green.
Yes.
How many people are watching Bowling Green play on Saturday?
Not
or
me.
play on a Wednesday? You know what I mean? That's his problem. I think it helps Tyler Warren. Don't get me wrong, he's disgusting, good player. Helped him. Them making a run, everybody's eyes are on it.
Oh, yes.
Fair.
Absolutely.
Everybody's eyes are on it. But if you watch that game when they played Penn State, it's like, who is this?
Yeah.
That's a good Penn State defense.
What is going on?
Yep.
He's a football player.
Yes.
Get him the ball and watch what happens.
I like that. Woo, any thoughts when you were watching the film on Fanning?
Yeah, so I watched he had a game against Akron. He went 9 for 135, and I believe it was 2 touchdowns on the ground, not even through the air. So when you talk about his speed, no, he's not that fast, but the acceleration, I think that is how he is beating some of these guys. It's not his speed, but that first acceleration burst, like that is how he's beating these guys. I thought he had really good contact balance for how small he is. He wasn't falling as soon as he got hit. He can break some tackles. I saw the stiff arm is crazy. Like that's his go-to move, and it works. He's got, because of his acceleration ability, that stop and go is really good, whether it's in his routes or coming off a catch and turning and changing sides of the field. That's absolutely there. The versatility is there. He lines up in different spots, gets handoffs, jet sweeps. They also use him in that fake jet sweep with the shovel pass that Kansas City does all the time. I saw that a few times. I thought he was a solid route runner. Like I said, he doesn't blow you away with the speed, but he does enough to get open. And he's really good at finding those soft spots in the zone. And there's a lot of screens around the line of scrimmage. So, I mean, he's with a creative mind, he could be the tight end one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible. It's possible.
Absolutely. Comp for him that I had, I don't know. I don't know if this one makes sense, but I saw a lot of Irv Smith in him. Okay. And like we all knew, Irv Smith before the before the meniscus tear and everything like that. Like he was going to be the dude in Minnesota. You know what I mean? I see a lot of that. I think they're actually identical. I think Irv is like an inch taller, but Harold Fanning had a little bit 10 more pounds. So the physical comparables are there. But so best fits I had for him, I had Jacksonville. Like you said, Wu, I think they need someone, and maybe that is the place where Lawrence uses the tight end, and throws it around. So maybe he gets the work there and becomes a fantasy value, right? Indy, right? Because we know that they need one. And then the last one I had was the Giants. That one could be interesting now with Jameis being the quarterback. I don't know, because I don't know how much he used the tight end as much.
Trying to think back to that Tampa Bay year.
And Njoku had a good year when he was healthy with him.
He did. But a lot of what you saw from Jameis is just like chucking the ball down the field.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's what you're gonna get with him.
Absolutely. But a comp and a best fit tie for Harold Fanning.
This may sound crazy, but he reminds me of Antonio Gates.
No,
that's
not my boy.
He reminds me of Antonio Gates. It's.
I see exactly what you're talking about.
Think about what you're saying. You're like, he doesn't blow you away with the speed, but somehow he's always open.
Yes.
Antonio Gates is not a speed guy.
No, he's
at
not.
all.
No, he's
but it's
not.
like, how is he always open? And then after the catch, I love the Jacksonville, especially because Jacksonville, their tight end doesn't have to have his hand in the ground. No. A lot of split out. Mm-hmm. He needs to go to an offense that's more spread.
Yes.
Tampa Bay's another good one. Cohen does love spreading. He needs a spread offense. He's not a hand in the ground.
No, he's not.
Go block for me.
No.
So I get where he can't be tight end one, because you probably need another tight end who's there just to block.
Yep.
You need another tight end.
You need your Will Dissly.
Yeah. You
know,
need another
Luke
tight
Farrell
end with him.
Guys. Yeah.
But in a spread offense, he's going to destroy linebackers. He's going to destroy
100%.
linebackers.
100%.
He's going to destroy them.
I love that. Will, comp and a best fit?
So my comp is, so similar to yours when I'm thinking about his measurables. He was basically identical to Isaiah Likely, and honestly, I see the game there as well. Yeah. So it's not even just the physical part of it. And then my best fit is Miami. I think he can be used very similar to Jonnu Smith.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Who just was the tight end 4 out of nowhere. We talking about spread offenses. Yeah. That's Miami all day.
Yeah.
I think Fannin would benefit from a really creative play caller, lining him up in different spots. And again, they just made Jonnu Smith a tight end 4 as a 29-year-old.
Right.
So
that's insane. So overall thoughts, right? I'm still conflicted about him. I wanted him to be the clear-cut number 2, but he's not the athlete that I was hoping for. But obviously the production is there. He flashed all over the field. So, obviously I'm concerned about his weight, and his inconsistencies as a blocker. But we just talked about, right? Like, you don't have to, as long as you have, a solidified blocking tight end, right? Yeah. My thing is, I want somebody to I want an NFL team to show me that they value this guy and that they want to draft him in order
fair.
for me to look his way. You know,
Yeah.
not to say that he's a bad player or anything like that, but I want to see an NFL team
At least third round, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I want to see at least third round.
Yeah.
I want them to like show me the vision where it's like, okay, I will consider taking Harold Fannin, you know, in my rookie drafts. I don't know about you guys, but you know, overall thoughts for Fannin.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I didn't watch a single snap of Bowling Green, so I didn't know anything about him. I was impressed. I think he was way more athletic than I was expecting, and you know, with his smaller size, that's always a concern. You know, there's kind of like a mold you think of, you know, for NFL tight ends, and these guys are massive. He doesn't fit that build, but because of the other aspects of his game, I think he can still have a solid NFL career. Again, need to see where he gets drafted. Is his team actually committed to this guy?
Yep.
And I think he's a player where situation will very much matter.
Yeah. Ty, anything you want to round out with your tight end one, Harold Fanning?
I'm high on him. Tape doesn't lie for me. I'm big on tape doesn't lie.
So the combine didn't scare you?
We see this all the time. Combines make people get drafted higher, make people get drafted lower. To me, I'm big on your tape never lies. You can't hide on tape.
No, you can't.
If your tape shows something, it is what it is. You can't hide on that. I don't know. There's something about him when he's on the field. He's just good.
Yeah.
He's just good. And back to this point, you don't always need to block. Travis Kelce is the worst blocking tight end in the NFL.
Yes. Yeah,
he wants nothing to do with contact.
See the Super Bowl film.
Yeah.
He wants nothing to do with contact, and look at him.
Yeah. Yeah, you bring up a very good point. So I'm going to be interested to see where Fanning gets drafted on draft day. We're going to move it into the fourth tight end. We're going to talk about Mason Taylor, son of Hall of Fame DN Jason Taylor, 6'5", 255 pounds. I put here great size and weight for in a tight end prospect. Another young guy. He's a little bit older than Loveland, but they're the two youngest guys in this class. He's not even 21.
Yeah.
I didn't mention this. Mason Taylor played at LSU. I put here production was low, had 55 receptions, 546, and 2 touchdowns. And then the only other thing I pointed out here before I watched the film is he a catch and fall down tight end because he had 9.9 yards per catch, which is the lowest in the class. Those were my pre-film thoughts. Anyone have any pre-film thoughts on Mason Taylor?
I loved his measurables. I think he fits in well to that mold that I just mentioned. Stat sheet doesn't blow you away, but I think he's one of the more polished in this class. One of the more polished tight ends. I think he's really well rounded. And again, SEC football, you're playing against NFL guys every single week, so it's always something I want to mention.
Absolutely. Anything pre-film tie for Mason Taylor?
He doesn't wow you at all.
No.
He does. There's very few tight ends that are going to wow you. Did he already hit his ceiling?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Like, is this as good as he's going to be? The other guys we're talking about is like, could he be this? Could he be that?
Right.
Mason Taylor as good as he going to?
He hasn't even hit 21, right? We talked about it, right? Tight ends mature a lot older, so I believe that there's probably still there's more there for Mason Taylor. When I was looking at his film, some notes that I had, I said moves a lot more fluid than Fannin does. He's athletic in the open field when you give him the opportunity. There were a couple of times where he was straight up hurdling guys, like going down the sideline. You love to see the athleticism in your tight end. And then I put here, other times you saw it like it was just a 5-yard out, catch, fall down, or catch, go out of bounds. It was a little sloppy. I saw a couple of bad penalties, in his film. But I think that gets cleaned up with good coaching and maturity.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's got to be youth.
And then I put here, he doesn't give you much after the catch, right? But he does find the soft spots in zone well, and he's got the build and the body, and he shows it on film that he's good. He's a good blocker,
and he does have the NFL pedigree.
Yeah, and he does have the NFL pedigree, and that matters though. That absolutely matters.
It definitely does.
It
definitely does.
But Ty, what did you notice? Anything else post film for Mason Taylor?
I watched a lot of LSU games. I don't know. He doesn't. This is gonna sound horrible. I'm like sounds like I'm trashing him. I don't know. He just doesn't wow you. For me, he doesn't you need to go get this guy. I could see him falling deep in the draft.
Sure.
Deep in the draft.
Sure. I was gonna say, listen,
This is a fantasy podcast, and we got to talk about the production.
Yeah, we do. And
hate
we
to say it, Mason, but-
and we've talked about it, right? Tight ends are not the flashiest of guys, right? So like he obviously we have like the big three, but it's not. I don't know how much you get out of these other guys that we're going to talk about. But what did you see watching Mason Taylor?
Yeah, super physical blocker. Very smooth route runner. It's not very choppy. He uses his hands to fight through linebackers, which is nice. The contested catch ability is definitely there, which is going to make him a good red zone target. So that's important for fantasy when he sees the field. I think he can be a really reliable target for a QB. Like Ty's been saying, he's not going to blow you away with big plays, but he just has really clutch hands. If he's got that 5-yard out and it's hitting every time, so be it.
Yeah.
But I think also like we talked about, like he's a good blocker. Like he's going to see the field.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there are going to be wrinkles where he's going to potentially get the ball, and then who knows? Does he start to develop into something?
I just think like when you think of like a safety net in an offense, like this guy I feel like he fits that bill perfectly.
Yeah,
absolutely. Comp I had for him was Hunter Henry. Like definitely like that good blocker. And then we'll run a crisp 5-yard out and fall down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But not going to give you anything crazy athletic after that or anything like that. I don't know. What did you guys have for a comp?
I got Pat Fryermuth. Similar measurables, that big reliable target, contested catch ability. He gets targets in the red zone, and like Fryermuth, he'll have some big games, but most of the time it's like 4 for 60 yards, and maybe he scores a touchdown.
Yeah. Any comp tie for Mason Taylor?
Doyle.
Jack Doyle.
Jack Doyle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Small Hands. I love that. Fitz I had. I don't know why, but for some reason this guy screams a Los Angeles Charger to me. Like he screams like a Harbaugh guy that's going to put his hand in the dirt and do the dirty work.
Absolutely.
I also put Denver. I could see him going to Denver because they need a tight end. And if Indy decided to not go tight end with their first round pick, he might be someone that they grab in the later rounds. Like I'm talking round 4 or 5, like later on down the road. But Ty, best fit for Mason Taylor?
San Francisco.
Ooh.
It's tight end 2 next to Kittle.
Okay.
I
feel like Shanahan could get creative with that if he wanted to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Woo, best fit?
I got 2. I got Houston. I think he fits the running style really well for blocking purposes. So again, just seeing the field, giving him that opportunity. A great safety net option for Stroud, especially if they don't bring back Diggs. Right now, they only have Nico Collins.
Yeah.
Like, I'm assuming Dell's going to be out for the year.
Yeah.
So I just think if there's any spot where targets are going to be available, like this is a place. My other one is the Giants. Jameis is the question mark, but
he's always the question mark.
So really why I put this one is I think he could be a super big help for a young quarterback whenever they decide to go that route. Like, he's going to be, 5 yards in front of you, whether a play breaks down or everyone else is just covered, he's going to be open.
Absolutely. Overall thoughts I said he has decent potential to become a tight end 1. I would like to see him be a bit more consistent in the open field. But he has a good frame to be a reliable blocker, and that's how he's going to get on the field. And then who knows, maybe he, turns into something.
Yeah,
So.
I think he has more NFL value than he does fantasy.
Yeah.
That's absolutely.
I think that's the key there, right?
Yeah.
Where do we have Mason Taylor in our rankings?
I have him at 4, I want to say,
yes,
right after Harold Fannin.
I have Mason Taylor at 5.
Okay.
All right.
That's our first differing opinion.
I think so. Yeah.
That's a first.
Ty, where do you have Mason Taylor?
5.
Yeah, 5. All right. We're gonna get into our last guy, and then we'll Wu and I and Ty will give you a bonus person just to keep your eye out. But the last man we're going to talk about, Gunnar Helm out of the University of Texas Longhorns, 6'5", 250 pounds. One of the older prospects in the draft, 22.6 years old. I put here again, we talk about age, but it doesn't worry me because tight ends hold their value a little bit more. 60 receptions, 786 yards, 7 touchdowns, pretty decent, right? 13.1 yards per catch. That was 4th best in the class. and we have to talk about his combine because it was horrible. But to give him grace, he did roll his ankle in the first 40 that he ran, and it shows a lot that he gutted it out. The only thing I will not give him grace for is the vertical, because they did the vertical before the 40, and that was god awful.
It was what, 30 inches?
Yeah, it was
I
awful.
think I had that in high school. Sorry.
But I am curious to see how he rebounds from this into his pro day, and I'm sure Texas's pro day is coming up like any day now, because they do it around this time of the year. But anyone want to take the floor pre-film for Gunnar Helm?
I think he was another good measurables fit for the NFL, physicality wise and his height and his weight. He was a part of a balanced Texas attack. We talked about it when we talked about Bond and Golden. There wasn't that one focal point of the offense. It was kind of like everybody's chipping in, and to have almost 800 yards, I think that's pretty good. Especially being a tight end with all those names around him.
I will say he had the most receptions out of anyone, more than Golden and more than Bond. So.
Yeah. That could also be Quinn Ewers just not being a good quarterback. That's a story for another day.
Yes.
I think he's another well-rounded tight end. He kind of does everything pretty solidly. There's no one part of your game where you're like, wow, it's so much better than the rest. And another SEC player.
Yeah. So when I was watching him, the number one thing that I noted was it was sloppy. A couple of holding penalties and false starts, again, gets fixed with good coaching, but he's an older guy, should know better.
Yeah.
He screams to me the talent that has like the most measurables, but doesn't do the not the dirty work, but doesn't have like the small fine-tuned things. You know what I mean? Like, we're having problems with holding penalties, we're having problems with false starts, but he's an athletic dude, so let's just get him on the field. I would really love to see him like hone in on his game and do all of the small things that makes him a pro, because I think if that does, he could be an interesting tight end. You know what I mean? Because there were multiple times where his 6'5" frame, like, he's just making athletic plays all over the field. You know what I mean? I don't know. What do you think, Ty, when you watched Gunnar Helm?
I think he's ready for the NFL right away, because if you can play in Sarkisian's offense, big NFL, this is how the NFL runs their offense.
Yeah, West Coast.
Yeah, he fit it well. He fit the offense well. I think he's a good player. He does have some bonehead mistakes.
Yes.
Some bonehead mistakes.
There's somewhere you're watching the film, you're like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
But then you also see the next play, and it's like, all right,
yeah,
I get
it. Exactly. Right? Like, I don't know. He's a question mark for me, and I don't know why, but it seems like all these Texas players are turning into question marks for me.
That's just
Careful.
Yeah, careful. I don't want Gunnar Helm coming for me. Woo, go ahead. What did you see watching?
Honestly,
that?
I was impressed with the versatility. They lined him up wide sometimes.
Yeah.
He wasn't just in the same spot every time. So
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. He's a solid deep ball guy. He gives you a big target over the middle of the field, and that's kind of, at the end of the day, what you're asking your tight ends to do. Off the tape, I thought he was more athletic than the combine will tell you. It's not like he blew up at the combine. He's this big freak athlete that just had a terrible day. But I think on tape it definitely speaks more volumes than what he did at the combine. So we'll see what his pro day looks like. I mean, he can make guys miss. He can handle contact. It's not like the Tyler Warren level where he's just bowling guys over.
Right.
But he's a bigger dude, so I think some of that is just being at that size kind of helps him out.
Yeah.
He's got consistent hands. He can bail out a QB on a play that breaks down, but he's not making the most ridiculous, contested catch, just mossing guys. He's an okay separator. Like, pretty much everything that I saw, like when I said earlier, is well-rounded. Everything kind of is at the same level. There's no one piece to his game that it impresses me more than the rest. So everything to me, he looks solid. Like that's kind of the word that I'll continue to use for him.
That makes sense. Ty, you got a comp and a best fit for Gunnar Helm?
Dalton Schultz.
Okay.
Schultz.
All right.
That's what I have.
Yeah.
I get a mix of Ferguson and Dalton Schultz.
Yeah.
I put here, I had Mike Gesicki.
Yeah.
So Fitz, I had I put the Chargers. They're gonna need a tight end.
They're gonna get one.
They're gonna get one of them. Again, like, it's the same thing with Indy. Like, if they don't go tight end in the first round, then I can see them going Gunnar Helm round 4, round 5. And the other one I had was the Giants. But what about you, Will?
I got Washington. I'm anticipating this guy being a day 3, 4 draft pick.
Yes.
So learning from Ertz would be beneficial for him. You'd being a part of an elite offense. And I think he could, be a best friend to Jaden Daniels, just being that guy that's near or a few yards past the line of scrimmage, that when a play breaks down and he can't use his legs, he can get it out to Helm.
Yep.
And it's a thin tight end room, so he really shouldn't have a problem seeing the field there.
Yeah. I think, obviously we talked about, in rookie drafts and these prospects, Warren's definitely could probably go in the first round. Loveland's that fringe end of the first round, second round. Fanning's probably second round as well, but
Unless you're Ty
and you want to take him in the first round. But these other guys that we're talking about, these are like end of your third round, or even picking them off your waiver wire. So if you have a conviction about one of these guys and they go to a great fit that or a spot that you like and you think it's a great fit, then who knows, put some fab on them and just keep them on your dynasty roster. So overall thoughts I had, could be a future tight end one, but he needs to clean up the unnecessary penalties, but he makes plays happen in the open space. He has reliable hands, and saw that he weighed 241 at the combine. So he lost about 10 pounds. You need to see him probably get 10 more pounds to be up at that playing weight that we'd like to see. And then I put here, same with Harold Fanning. The NFL needs to show me, someone wants him and values his skill set. You know what I mean? So same thing I was saying before. Yeah. So if they do that, I'll draft him and spend my fab on him everywhere. If they don't, I think I'm going to be out. And same as, Mason Taylor, it's got to be in that third round. You know what I mean? Like if you're getting drafted in the 5th, 6th round,
I don't care.
Nothing. I'm out. I want nothing to do with it. Anyone else have any lasting thing they want to say about Gunnar Helm?
Again, he's a solid guy. That there's pieces that I think can work. Again, it's gonna really depend on where he gets drafted, team, and then also round wise.
Yeah.
But I think he's definitely at the end of your drafts. To be honest, I don't think I would even use the last pick of the draft on him. I think I'd rather take a shot on a receiver.
I
or a
fully
running back.
agree with you on that.
Well, someone has the last pick in the draft. Someone might be using it. Who knows? So there you have it. Those are our top 5, tight ends that we're going to talk about. We are actually going to go into just some quick people of note. Nothing crazy, but I do want the people out there to be aware of Elijah Arroyo out of Miami. 6'4", 245. The only thing I will point out is he had the highest yards per catch in this class. I believe it was 17 yards per catch, but he only had 35 catches. Could be someone who's an athletic, tight end, like you were saying. Ty doesn't have to, put his hand in the dirt, and maybe a team utilizes that skill set. Who'd you have for someone to note?
Yeah, just to pay attention to is Luke Lackey out of Iowa. He's 6'6", 247.
Big Iowa boy.
I mean, they have the resume for having NFL ready tight ends. He is an older guy. I want to say he's like 23. Yeah, he's 23 already. So I mean, if there's any case for him, it's that he will be ready to go for the NFL day one.
Always. Ty, you got one?
Terrence Ferguson.
All right. Tell me about Terrence.
Terrence Ferguson, since he's been at Oregon, I think he played his freshman year. Okay. Right away, he played right away. He's a good tight end. He's long, athletic. Something about him, I like the way he plays.
Yep, 6'5", 255.
Yeah, I like the way he plays. Terrence Ferguson is one of those guys that you're not going to draft him. Don't get me wrong. You're not drafting him.
You're going to pick him up off the
waiver.
But
it could be like, oh, who is this?
Yeah.
And then change everything. I think he's a very, very good athletic tight end.
13 yards a catch.
He
also, almost 14.
He played in Oregon's offense where there's so many mouths to feed on that team.
Always.
There's so many mouths to feed. But I think he's a very good tight end. And he has a size. He has everything you want. And I think he has a nasty streak, which you want to see from a tight end. You want to see that guy that wants to.
You got to be a borderline psycho in order to play tight end.
I like the kid.